Of the Finance Committee. And again, we have to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Farrar, please.
Mr. Chairman. David Bergsfesser.
Still here.
Thomas Stover.
Here.
Michael Astafan.
Excused.
Mark Finkel.
Here.
Michael Clark.
Here.
Robert Leslie.
Here.
Robert Fultan.
Here.
John Hodgson.
Here.
Carol Wright.
Here.
Richard Ferrara. Here. Mr. Chairman.
Are there any motions to adopt or revise the meeting agenda? Hearing none. We'll move on. Committee business.
Well, we do have to adopt. We have to adopt or
Yep.
revise.
Need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion to adopt. Okay.
Okay.
The meeting agenda.
That'd be Mark, I think.
Oh,
Your turn. You'll have to say.
I'll make that
Okay.
motion.
Mr.
I'll
Finkel. Mr. Stover.
All right.
All in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay. Now we go to the new
Minutes.
business.
Just go to minutes. Adopt the minutes.
All right. Oh, here we go. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm off track here. Now we go to approval of the Finance Committee meeting minutes.
I'll move the approval.
Mr. Finkel.
Second.
I'll second.
Mr. Stover.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm not voting.
Okay. Now we go to old business?
Old business.
There is no old business.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, there is?
One item.
Yeah, you just
Oh,
go to.
okay. We have a discussion of the July 1st, 2012 through June 30 draft budget. And Mr. Ferrara, please.
I guess,
explain
Mr.
that.
Chairman, I'm getting to that page.
No.
On track.
Okay, on page 55 through 72 is the proposed budget following technically no changes from the last committee session. 71 to 72 for the committee's information is a proposed fourth year, which represents 2015 and 2016. It's just an estimate, it's a forecast, if you will, and that is also required. And on page 73 through, I believe, 75 is the capital plan for the Hudson River area and Black River area respectively. Again, there was no change to the capital plan. And actually, let me go through my notes here. Draft includes salary items at current salaries plus 2.5% a year. It also includes 3 additional Sacandaga Field Office personnel, additional, and 1 general board. Again, no change from the May 8th meeting. There is a 2% salary contingent line for general board, which I believe is fairly immaterial. I'll give you that number. It is for 3 years, $36,768. No change in the general increases, which are 3.2% using a CPI forecast. We did discuss the FERC 10F revenue, which I had recommended that we do not include because at this time we have not received from FERC the final headwaters benefit determination. Again, the final capital plans, there is no change.
So what you're saying is that there's no, within this proposed budget, there is no line item for revenue from headwater benefits?
Correct.
Okay.
So there'd be no reduction in the Hudson River area. Correct. We had discussed last time a summary judgment won by AEC, and then we discussed that there would be a possible material impact if all of the former hydro beneficiaries were to seek refunds. And at this time, I had recommended that there wouldn't be anything necessary to include in the budget, and that at which point there was any order to pay, that the board could deal with it at that time, either through a bond, which is probably something I would recommend, or
Right.
maybe some other mechanism, but I think bond would be the way. We did discuss at the last committee meeting the assessments by areas, in particular the Black River area, where the assessment is going up, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of 36%, I believe. And that increase is largely driven by the fact that the Black River does not have its reserves, $3 million and change, any longer due to the order of the court to pay Fulton County taxes in the Hudson River area. If we would have had that reserve, we would have mitigated the increase in the Black River area assessments by probably the entire percent. We could have actually kept the budget at a nominal 3 to 5% increase. So the increase really is subject to that.
Okay.
And also, on the Hudson River side, the assessment does not include, as I had previously indicated, the 10F. It also does not include anything chargeable to the state, which I believe we'll get into a discussion of the apportionment. So, and I think we could probably go on to a discussion of,
Sure.
want to move on to the apportionment.
Under-
Or any questions regarding the draft?
You mentioned a 2.5% pay increase? Is that what we have to rescind, or is that?
No,
Or
we
is
can
that the
discuss that
contractual?
later, but
Okay.
what's budgeted is that it's just essentially a placeholder
Okay,
to account for the potential, at least,
Possibility.
miracle of miracles, if it does actually, over the course of the next 3 years, non-union staff
Got it.
actually get an increase.
Thanks.
So that is a placeholder in the budget. That's not an actual,
And that
that's
is
not
a-
an action.
Right, it is a budget, it's
Just
for all
proposed.
staff, so it's not just.
Okay.
Okay, so it's proposed.
Right, so the 2.5% would theoretically cover any increase for any staff, whether that be a union person or.
Or, I mean,
Right, I only made half a statement there. The union, of course, is contractual.
Mm-hmm.
Management certainly is not, and requires an action of the board
Right.
for
Okay.
anything to happen.
All right, thanks. I just wanted to verify that.
So that would be my report for the draft budget discussion under old business.
Okay.
You want to move to new business, or
Okay.
any other questions?
I have no more questions.
Now we move to new business.
We're going to go back to it. because that's under
And
new
let's
business.
see.
Turn over, Mike, to discuss that. That's a real unfortunate.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Clark, discuss the Hudson River apportionment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As everybody is aware now, I'm sure, on May 10th of last month, we received a decision from the appellate court, third department, that remanded the apportionment of the Hudson River beneficiaries back to the regulating district for this, essentially the sole reason of there not being a state share tabulated or identified or carved out of the assessment. The decision was a good one for the regulating district in that it upheld our methodology, acknowledged our ability and to assess the counties as beneficiaries, and acknowledged the steps taken along the way to issuing the previous apportionment. However, it was essentially nullified for not having an amount chargeable to New York State within it, and that is the assessments that were the apportionment that was approved by the board in March of 2010.
Was it nullified or just remanded back?
Well,
for
it was
assessment?
remanded back to us, but essentially it nullified it because it did not nullify the methodology.
Okay. Just the
However, because we have to redo it
Right.
in the sense of that we actually have to calculate an amount chargeable to New York State for the benefit of flood protection they receive downstream from Great Sacandaga Lake. It effectively has caused staff to rework the apportionment. We have been working diligently on that for the last month, and we are at the point now where we have some rough numbers. We're not at the point this month to present it to the board. However, I think it's the expectation of staff that we will, at the latest, bring it to the board at the July meeting for the board's consideration. And that what you will see at that meeting is very similar to what was presented to the board in March of 2010 in terms of the methodology and the format and everything else. However, it does, using that methodology, the staff, including myself and the chief engineer, general counsel, and our CFO, we have been diligently calculating an amount chargeable to New York State, and I think we can say at this point that it will represent, as that decision very clearly indicated, it will include or represent New York State properties that are flood protected, New York State roads that are flood protected by Great Sacandaga Lake, and also bridges. And in a very general sense, that's how we will arrive at a percentage and, in turn, a dollar amount for the board to look at. And like I said, we fully expect that at this point that the board will see that next month.
Very good. Thank you.
And we hope to do it sooner, but practically it's probably not, it would not happen before that unless we were at the point where we could do that in the next few days. I don't know that the board would be able to reconvene in advance of the July meeting. So that's why we're at this point saying the July board meeting.
No, I don't want to rush it. Let's do it right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So we move to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2012 through June 30, 2015 budget.
Well, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Now, does Mr. Clark speak on that also?
The Black River assessment? There's Mr. Farrar.
Okay.
Oh. There's been no changes in the budget since the last time we met.
No change in the
No.
budget, and again, the board at this point is just,
So that was our third reading.
correct. So we're just following our board's statutory authority under 152125 to approve a budget.
Okay.
And then following that, what comes subsequent to that is the approval of the assessment, in this case, a single assessment, because we will only be moving the Black River area assessment, because at this time, without an apportionment and chargeable to the state, we do not have a final assessment number for the Hudson River area. So, page 77 is the resolution to approve the annual assessment for Black River, and there's a motion to advance that to the full board and recommend adoption of that assessment, which is the first year, July 1, 2012, through June 30, 2013, for the Black River area assessment.
All right.
Actually, if I could
Yeah.
jump in for a second and just offer some additional, right now, what the board has, the committee has before them, and the board will shortly, is a 3-year budget, starting July 1st, 2012, and going through June 30th of 2015. Going into this, right now, you have for the first year of that budget, the board also has before it a Black River area assessment, which is considerably higher than it ever has been before. And that is a direct result, as was stated just a minute ago, it's a direct result of the Black River area reserves having been drained as a result of action last August. We're at the point now where we are perhaps more hopeful than we were in any time previously that we as a regulating district will realize the receipt of assessments from in the Hudson River area. And when and if we do, that will help to some extent replenish those reserves. I mean, that is the plan. That's what was done, and that's the condition that those reserves were transferred under almost a year ago. When that happens, that effectively changes, or could change, the budget. Certainly the Black River area budget for the second and third year of this period. The board does, although we budget for 3 years, it does not mean that if things change substantially, which receipt of that money would be a substantial change in my mind, it does not mean that a year from now, or even 9 months from now, or what have you, the board couldn't then recast the budget for the second and third year, or the third year, depending on how things actually play out. Which of course would then potentially, you could reduce the assessments for the second and third year to the Black River beneficiaries.
Again, that's why we do a 1-year assessment. It's a 3-year budget, 1-year assessment, and come this time next year,
Right.
the board could certainly approve an assessment reduction for the Black River area.
Hopefully.
All right.
And in a perfect world, that assessment would be stable for 3 years, where you.
In a perfect world, which we clearly have not been in
It's avoided us.
for some time now.
Are there any other things to discuss on the Finance Committee? Then I move for or I call for a motion.
Do we need to vote on this?
Eventually.
Yeah, we need a motion to advance the Black River area.
Motion to adjourn. Right.
Oh, you want
No.
to move it back?
We have to
You want
move
to
C.
vote on the Black River area assessment?
Oh. Motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2012 through June 30, 2013 Black River area assessment.
I so move.
Mr. Finkel?
Aye. Second.
Mr. Stover?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. I would point out just one other thing. I'm
Sure.
going to make during the full board meeting, I will make a full presentation of the budget.
Okay.
So give the full board opportunity to ask questions.
All right, the Finance Committee's agenda is completed.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Finkel? Mr.
I
Stover?
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
7:26.
Finance Committee is adjourned.